Yeah. Welcome to the final dispense ceremony of our Cycle 12 Bachelor of Information and Sciences, collaborated between the Ho Chi Minh University of Science and the Auckland University of Technology, New Zealand today. Yeah. It has been 2.5 years that we last met our good friends, Mr. Patrick Casmello and Mr. Indra Wijaja. Yeah, so I'm sure that all of us feel that this is a great blessing today. We can come together after a long separation and disconnection because of the pandemic. Yeah. So, with that matter of fact, I would like us to have a big applause for all of the 9 groups, for all of their struggle during the COVID isolation period during the project, and to give a big motivation for all of their hard work and determination to complete their project despite all of the difficulties and challenges like lack of direct interaction and lack of motivation, insufficient health status during the project. So a big applause for all of the groups. Now, before we proceed to the first presentation, please allow me to introduce the board of committee who will be reading your presentations today. First of all, please welcome Mr. Patrick Cascabello, the PCS Vietnam Arctic Project Coordinator, Auckland University of Technology. Secondly, please welcome Dr. Lan Quang Vũ, the Vice Head of our Faculty of IT, the University of Science. And we have guests from representatives from companies. It is Mr. Indra Wijaja, CEO of Fromlabs Singapore today to support the group. Okay, thank you. Okay, so now let's start with the first presentations. We would like to welcome the Restaurant Inventory Management Group to perform their presentation. Good luck to you all.
Hello everyone, I'm happy to present for the first group of our new project. I hope that you had a right today. So to begin the first section, I introduce Mr. to talk about the project overview.
Okay, good morning everybody. We are the R&D team responsible for the restaurant inventory management system. Our team supervisor are Mr. William Mr. and our client representative is Mr. Yu. Our team has 4 members. One is the leader, who is the front-end developer, Long is designer, and Vin is back-end developer. Here is the table of content. Let's have a look at the overview. And in this project, we aim to focus on enhance food safety, and secondly, make the process more efficient, and thirdly, get good product onto shelf quicker. Fourthly, is optimize transit, and finally, recommend the food based on available recipes. This is an example of our system. Next is our detail role. One is the project manager and quality assurance. He is the detail responsibilities. Long is our main designer and quality control. Bo is the front-end developer and good tester. and finally, team is plugin developer and DevOps. Next is our project progress. And we have total 13 sprints, and we have complete of them and deliver to the client. Next is the project advance. Mr. Lin will continue on this one.
Hello everyone, this is me again. Now I will have to introduce about the project artifact. First of all, our project has four main parts. The first one is the delivery service. The second part is the recipe service. The third one is the supplier, and the last one is the notification service. All these services is a base to reduce our system. In the first section, I will talk about the system design, how we make our design based on the requirements from the background. As you can see here, this is the UML raster. In the upper corner, you can see that all entity is the children of the base entity. The ingredient itself has two levels. The first one is the ingredient category as the parent, and the second level is the ingredient type as the children. The ingredient type will have the mapping with the item, the physical item in the inventory, and that mapping will represent as the item entity. In the requirements, we have to keep track the events, the transactions related to that item, so we have the ingredient history entity. So move to the next design is the recipe UML raster. They also based on the conventional structure. That will be the children of the base entity. The recipe also has two levels. The first one is the recipe group, and the second one is the recipe child. To map in between the relationship of the ingredients, also the marketing to the recipe, we create the recipe detail entity. You can see that the recipe detail is just like a detail how many ingredients inside that recipe. In the third design, we have the supplier UML raster. Like each partner, the recipe and the ingredient, supplier also derived from the base entity. The supplier has more specials on design because not only it has two levels, but also the supplier itself has the entity code, the material to keep the capacity how that supplier can provide what ingredient and what quantity of that ingredient. And in terms of capture all the transactions of the supplier provide the ingredient, we have the import entity and import detail entity. Lastly, we talk about the design of the notification. We will check this is a symbol and the unit design in all four. That's the first of all, we have the message template entity, which depicting the template of the email that we will send on the event upload stock and the monthly statistic as a part of the requirement from the client. So finally, we came to a section that we demonstrate the overview of our database diagram. As you can see in the left corner, we can see that the core service, including the ingredient, the recipe, the supplier, and notification business that's below. And in the right corner, you can see that there are some utility database for the infrastructure circuit, for the gateway, and the API for the security. So we come to the next part. I have mentioned about all the services that we just done, and all of them based on architecture of the multi-layer architecture. They have four layers. The first layer is the external layer with the API endpoint and the controller. The second layer is the all service, including the service layer and the infrastructure layer. Third one is the infrastructure, and lastly, this is the database layer. Let's take a look at the total overview of our system. As you can see, they have two main parts. The first part is about the front-end application. we have three front-end applications to control the microservice connected console, the web portal to be the admin, and finally the key-lock web portal. And in the section of backend apps microservice, we have four core service that I just mentioned about, and in the middle you can see that we have the API gateway at the intermediate between the microservice and external to the web portal. And we also have the API security to keep the request verified. So in the final section, I will talk about the user interface design. I will talk a little about the process that we design and implement a sprint based on our web portal. First of all, we will gather and collect all the UI material to make a brainstorm design for our sprint. Let's look at some example in here. In the next step, we will scroll out our wireframe, the dialog, the table, and start to think how to implement this sprint. So come to the crop of project deliverable. We will have two main sections. The first one is document-based deliverable. As you can see, the table of document and the date that we reach this document. And in the next part is the source release. We will have two large buckets. The first bucket is the core service I just mentioned about, and the second one is the infrastructure bucket. Lastly, about the project management, Mr. Tung, RBM will continue the session.
So moving on to our project management, we apply the sprint process. So in the beginning of the sprint, we will analyze all the requirements and convey it on to the teammates. And the biggest item in the product backlog and on the related planning. And secondly, there will be a planning diary sprint of every cost of the sprint. So the team members can raise their issue during the implementation in design, and also the project manager will update the project status and re-information. So thirdly, it is integration testing stage. If we have to try with front-end and back-end team would work together to integrate the front-end application and back-end system. And also the tester will report about the tech report. And lastly, in the retrospective stage, in the end of sprint, all the team members will want to put together to review back what they have made on the lab and what should be improved. And only the information not there related report. So here in the sample of our sprint, we are using the tier tool for sprint. There are total 13 sprints we have already done. Moving to the next part, that is branch. As you can see right here on the sample of our branch, we use branch for progress management and human resources. So moving on to the project efforts. Here is a sample of our project log plan. As you can see here, everyone of our team has started 330 working hours. And here our login plan using the toggle. So moving to the new requirement part. Everything seen here, we received a new requirement part from the client, and some of them not enough for that is out of stock, and the other ones that we cannot leave. And we have already said it, and we work with the requirement analysis document to the client about his situation, and the client has been confirmed on about it. So moving to communicate with team and supervisor. So here meeting agenda and meeting minutes. we are using the same template to the weekly team meeting and the supervisor meeting. Every meeting we will create a report as a meeting agenda and meeting minutes, and we send the report to our supervisor and through email. So moving to the communicate lines. Here we also have a report for our live meeting that we were relating as the live meeting and here example of our meeting agenda and meeting minutes. So moving to the live confirmation part. As we can see here an example of our email confirmation from our team and the live. So to the next session, that is quality assurance. Mr. Long will continue.
Okay, thank you. Okay, we measure of the quality assurance. I will show you the three case systems. The first, the statistic of the P chart here. As you can see here, we have nearly 900 test cases, including three types of. The first is front end, back end, and the last thing with API test case. So at the pie chart here, at the front end, we have account for the most with 60% and 40% divide equal to backend and API. With the word tracking process, we have 6 steps. With the first one, how we found the bug and we define is the bug, and then we analyze to this the bug or this the function. So when we define it, we assign to the person who has the responsibility to fixing bug, and then we check again to the bug is fixed or not. If not, we have to reopen the bug and we have to fix. And the last thing that we load and drive the report. So move to the table of the book tracking process. We have so many columns here, but I also focus on the originator, that the person who filed work, and the date, the summary, severity or priority. Then we have the status that the work or fixed or not. Come to the challenge. The first one with the technical aspect. The backend has also with microservice that we have no experience before, and the second thing that Italy has said about we have to manage for more than 4 modules, that we have to complete some code and that takes so much time. For our front that the resources that I work with Italy, that's not enough. That we use the free react that make me to code and reuse the component, and the time we fixing the complete code maybe spend a lot too. About non-technical aspect, that the client connection, and we inform that Mr. Curl have no in charge, and we have disconnect to our client for a while, and we have to send email for product demo, and we receive current client by Mr. Hewlett for the product demo. We have about 3 minutes to work for how we did in this project.
So next is the part of the project demo based on our requirements. First of all, we will start the project demo video. the video has got some cut errors, so we will move to the questions and answer section. Yeah, yes, we have demo. Wait for 1 minute. Let's start the project demo. Yes, and you can see it's based on our project demo. We have 17 use cases for all our requirements. This is the zero tree view that we're in detail. We can filter the code and all everything related to the item. So we move to view the event type. Just like this parent, you can filter and sort all the information related to the individual. And in the next section, we take out the batch of item. For example, we will add one quality of item into here. In the next, we will add event category. Variations. So we can go to scenario now. View all the rest image and find it based on the item. Now in this arrow take, we make the recipe based on the selected. In the next arrow, we will handle with the slider. And one of the most difficult functions is based on the subject action that we will gather all the demand item to subject what recipe can be made. It is those up and we send an attachment email to the stakeholder. Yes, in the documentation you can see that it is the same. In the third one, I just mentioned you can use to send a notification back to the stakeholder to do or the email better. So there are some field requirements for the scenario. So we move to the next section. This is the Q&A. Thank you.
Thank you for the team presentation. Now it is time for the questions and comments from the board committee.
Okay, thank you very much for your presentation. So, please put back to the quality assurance section. Put back to the slide, quality assurance.
Back to the quality assurance.
Yeah, okay. So I see on the list here you have more than 800 test case, and there are only one test case failed. But for the next slide, so one test case failed, but you have the list of the bugs. There are many bugs here. So where's bug come from?
Yes, I will answer this question. Before we answer, we discuss about the questions. Peter, please capture the questions into the question bit. Yes, hello, Mr. Bo, and we will answer your questions. First of all, the test case is based on the unit testing. This is when we test these functions of the module, and the source of bug mostly come from the new requirements, the integration when we deploy, and directly relate to when we get the versions of our source code. Because we have three versions. The first one is the MVP, the second one is the 1.0, and the last one is 1.1. They have some missed configurations and also the conflict between some library, so they are. And in terms of when we test the logo, it runs okay, but when we go to the staging environment, they have some function that can be run. For example, when we send a mail or something like that, related to the inbound, outbound, cannot send mail, and we with the algorithm capture that abnormal event and push into the bug list. And we analyze and decide is a bug or not, and we assign it to the support one to fix or refer that bug.
Yeah, so you will not then no test case for this bug.
Yes, test case for this bug.
So there are no test case.
The test case, first of all, the test case run override on the local and the machine that we run, but when we deploy, there are some test case run fail.
Yeah, you must log the test case fail here.
Yes,
So
sir.
it's the same test case, but we run in a different environment.
Yes.
We will run on local and the same we will run on the live.
Obviously, the test case that we do block on the logo and on the device, and the bug also comes from the logo and the iterations environment, like we deploy it on the digital ocean. We will send you the detailed file based on the driver.
Yeah, because when you have a test case, you design a test case and you execute a test case based on the environment. And if you execute a test case on different type of environment and the test case fails, you have to identify it, the test case fails.
Yes.
Yeah.
The test case failing here is when we make a system test on the local and on the device server, and the bug list on the test base is based on the latest bug wrapping on the deploy, also on the local.
Okay.
Most of
Yeah. Okay. For the front-end test case here, so how many test methods you apply in the testing process? So for example, functional testing, IAE testing, for performance testing, UI testing, compatibility testing, something like this.
yet in terms of the front-end testing, we will execute the unit testing and the UI testing. All of them contribute to the front-end testing. And talking about the performance, must take the time to make a stress test or performance test for our payment application.
So you use the microservice for the system architect in the system, right?
Yes, we apply microservice because it's the requirement from the client. The requirement from the client want to design the back end of the system to be a microservice. It based on the requirement.
So why expand it up to microservice?
First of all, we will talk about, let this mention, first of all, the microservice is the rest of the client, and the second thing is the analytic. So we must try something new, something that we never tried before, like a monolithic or something that we have done before. So we decide to use the microservice and find research and find out the pros and cons of this architecture. And one more thing to be considered that I may think the team may think that the system has a feature of scaling, so we try to do the beauty. We try the microservice.
So after you implement the microservice, what is the process called?
First of all, I will talk about the content of the microservice. First of all, if we use the microservice, we have to make many workshops and research on what the microservice about, how to implement. We learn about the domain drivers, design of the every drivers to know what the microservice based on. Secondly, we will have to learn the technology, the test stack to build up, implement microservice. And the third one has to be a new section, a new domain. We will got a lot of time to get it bugs. The bugs that relate to the syntax, the structure, and everything related to the microservice. This is the disadvantage of microservice when we apply it, and this is also the one.
This is the disadvantage of team, not microservice.
Yeah. So disadvantage of the microservice in the general is that if you don't need your application to be scaled out, you actually don't need the microservice. Yeah. That's the first aspect of the microservice. And the second thing that microservice we use is that we just make this service just integration cost. So it's quite difficult to implement a microservice compared to a monolithic one. Very hard to implement a microservice. And talking about the advantage of microservice are vast.
So the problem here, because client requiring to implement the microservice,
Yes.
so that the system can be scaled. But you do not apply the performance testing, so you cannot evaluate how the system scales.
Yes, this is another issue related to our client disconnection. We have experienced a disconnection from the 12 last year, November last year into the month. We do not receive any feedback from them, so in that treatment, we have to handle that issue. If the issue is not occurred on the disconnection of client, we have the time to take on integration to the system and make them have a test. This is another issue.
You can do it without client, because you can design a test case to perform another system.
As I just mentioned, this is the integration part into the rest of the technology. It's not a system that they go organization or the integration to the technology of the plan. So if we test only on our system, the performance test will not be correct enough because of the integration.
So thanks for this. So I have a follow-up question actually. My question is simple. So Dr. Wu talked about a little bit more technical. From the client perspective, I need to understand. So I don't see any data flow diagram here. And if I'm new to this application, I would know what the functions are. I mean, yes, you listed all the functions, right? But you do not have, you didn't explain what is this application for. I think that's where the question came about. And secondly, do you have any user guide?
Yes, we have user scenario guide. It's a document-based documents to explain how to execute that use case. For example, add a batch item into the restaurant. We have a list of steps, detail how to do it.
How did you do that? And then how come it's not on the presentation? I mean, I think that's the fundamental because now you're talking to people that never seen the application before, and you're talking to people that are not necessarily IT savvy. Yes, you have all the technical. You have so look at this. You have 877 test cases, front end, back end API. But what does that mean?
Yes, this section is related to the technical part and related to the requirements and the specification. We have section and document like another users for that we have to read.
Have you got to show a sample?
Yes, then we can show a sample of that.
Okay. So while you are looking for that, you mentioned that one of the most difficult things was determining if a recipe can be actually made. You know, if there is enough material in the warehouse, in the ingredients. You mentioned that that's one of the most difficult things in your system, in the presentation. So maybe you can show the test case that shows that case. You know, how do you actually check that the materials are available for a particular recipe? That would be a good example to answer in cross-dimension. Then the second one is perhaps you can demonstrate the answer in the user manual by showing your API documentation.
Yeah, the
API documentation explains the API of the different microservices. That would be a good way to answer your question.
Yes, firstly, answer to the API documentation. We have the API documentation, and one more thing is that is the integration system. So if we have manual document how to use this system for the activity.
Yeah, so if you can show us.
Yeah, first of all, we will show a document about the user scenario first, and secondly, we will show the API document. I think next time we will look at the next time.
Yeah, we need to be quick because I have more questions.
Yes, thank you. Yes, we will demonstrate this vector measurements use that user scenario and use pronoun. Yeah, this will detail list for the step and regulations and operations of how this use that scenario will be executed. Go to the first scenario. Yes.
But we don't have control. It's just the inventory of checking whether there is enough ingredients to make the recipe
Strong subject as well.
availability of material.
Yes, based on existing area. Let's close it. Let's take a look at how we escape this scenario. Go to the secret song and click on the icon. We will see the daily subject. As you can see in here, this is the recipe detail view for that recipe. It will contain the quantity based on the right side, right column. The left column will be the real time. And the quantity of this recipe that we make is green. So if we will try to input bigger number, they will check. And the quantity of the subject taxon must be larger than 0 because we cannot subject nothing. So from that, here we confirm the subject taxon to here, and you can see you can compare to the variety number compared to this number. So if we left, but we want to subject 10, this will pop up invalid input because it is either 0 or larger than the maximum. So this was Fromlabs. And the scenario of the taxon will also relate to the low stock when we subject lower than the mean quantity of an item with email we send to the stakeholder. And you will need those Fromlabs. Here is the example of the email for low stock. It goes from now.
Okay, thank you. So you mentioned that that was one of the hardest functions. You mentioned that that was one of the hardest features for your project. Why?
First of all, that feature must be related to many servers. The first one, the URL server, the recipe server, the not function server. It really combine functions of all servers to run just a simple specification like this. And one more thing related to this is that when we have too many remote subjects taxon at the same time, it may be rejected to all of them. Because when everyone goes to the request, they will keep, and the first one will get served first.
Yeah, could you give the number? So you have too many. So what does it mean? Too many? 100, 1,000, and 1 million?
In the simple level, we will try to limit it to three. Because of the simple level.
Only 3.
3.
20.
Yes, because our server is really easy to get done when we test on our machine. It can get more than 20, yeah, 20 users we on top the target on the same time. And when we do deploy the server, we get 2 weeks to and how much is not enough to rank one.
Yeah,
So we
and you use the microsystem, right? So now if I get that 100 computer will use this feature at the same time, you recommend the hosting server, the requirement for the hosting server?
First of all, we do not offer on if we deploy it on VM operational function. And the specification that we use for this system or of the server is just 2 gigabytes RAM and the CPU is very low because we just want to try.
So my question is, so if the requirement there will be 100 computer users use the system at the same time, so what is the requirement for the hosting server?
The requirement for the hosting server, we can upgrade the service, the host machine into the same specification as my machine. They get 60 gigabytes of RAM and something like that. We can get the specification for the same the local machine that we use.
So why is system
Yes.
formulation about can calculate this kind of system to be RAM?
Because I tried that book testing on my local machine, and when it for more than 20 user, it gets around 40%.
So you said that you implement the performance testing on the local machine, but you have no test case on
I just make a simple test for this issue on the it's not complete performance testing, so not
It's also a performance testing. The test case is simple or complicated. It's also a test case.
yes. So I will contact this simple testing and performance testing. And I just mentioned that we have enough time to performance such a performance testing or security testing because the time is very long.
Okay, we are over time, but there is an important section in the marking criteria, which is theme and individual explanation, reflections of lessons learned, and demonstration of critical thinking. And, and Mr. Liam, please give the microphone to your team members to give them an opportunity to discuss. And my question is, for each team member, out of this microservices project, Liam, you are still holding the microphone. Please give it away. Okay, so considering this microservice project, what do you think is the most important thing you can say that you have learned for your future next career step?
So first of all, here is first time we get manager and first time and so in the microservice, I just I asked at the quality assurance provider what is the escape, but Mr. Long and Mr. Wu is in charge of the finance and Mr. Lim is in the back end.
That's from your perspective. What do you think is the most important thing for your next career step that you can say that you learned in the project?
This is the first time I've explored about the microservice, and I think it is quite a big challenge for me because it is the first time myself, and I think if we in the next career in my future, I will spend more time on area of the microservice.
Okay, thank you. Next, please.
Okay,
for my personality, for my perspective, that he said about the microservice, that really support me because for my roles of the team, I was a person who had the responsibility with the UI on the UI of the project, and also on poster, also the working with the front-end developer like Mr. Wu. And for the UI design, that I searched for one of the design system that relate to system design, but font, color, and also that working with Mr. Wu about the print layout. Yes.
As a front-end developer, working in this project helped me to enhance my experience in building the React front-end template for the project, while also using several material libraries. So I learned some experience by working with Mr. Lin to implement some the function of the backend to the front end. Thank you.
Hello everyone, this is me. So I will talk about the lesson learned and microservice because Lee is the man in charge of the microservice deployment in the team. I have the role to support the front end with the to integration function inside the microservice to the web portal, and this whole design the user canvas diagram that I say is an object and then to also multi-layer architecture of the server. And also my biggest disadvantage in this project is that it's also my first time came into microservice. Also Java application is built based on first time biggest challenge.